We are live.
Are we live?
Yep.
Alright.
I'm going to try to not have super squeaky chairs today.
I kind of like the super squeaky, gets people something to focus on.
There's that. I'm going to turn my volume down on my brand new laptop so we don't hear ourselves speak. I think we're looking pretty good. I have a beverage. It's not alcoholic at the moment, but we can work on that.
I'm working on
And, we got 9 people watching, but we're going to chill for a second. But to those who've already been waiting for us to go live, we appreciate it. And welcome again back to the Rev and Evan channel, or if you're new,
Thanks for joining.
thanks for joining, yeah. We got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. It's been a long day. We're gonna go over a lot of the stuff I did today because it all relates to stuff for the channel. And it's gonna be a fun live, I think. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna answer some questions. We're gonna give you some amazing details on the 7.3 and some of the testing we've done. Had a great dinner cooked by Brian's wife, Nancy.
Awesome.
Oh my God. Delicious beef dish. So it's going to be what I'll call a fun, relaxed evening. I think I probably do need a cocktail.
Probably.
Probably.
Gonna get that for you. Or Josh to the rescue.
Josh. I'm also cruising a GT500 this weekend, Brittany Blue. We're going to do a couple of house. Look at that, Josh taking care of me, man. Really appreciate that.
So things we're going to talk about, we just want to wait for a few more folks to show, is there's some new products coming. We want to talk a little bit about like some new people kind of getting into the Godzilla swap business.
Yep.
It's kind of, we don't have anything to talk about specifically. You're going to do something on that later.
Yep.
Just so people know, as people keep saying, well, where are the parts? I mean, there's companies on board, whether it's Team Motorsports or Somebody Motorsports, big input from a swap perspective from Indy Power Products. Calais continuously kind of leading the charge on the hardware. We've got, of course, Dyno and Weisscore pistons available.
Sure.
So all that stuff, and there's some new stuff coming, so we want to just give people a heads up on that. Especially about the subjects. We talked a bit about that last time, we kind of have an update on that, and those are going to be available. And we want to probably spend about 10 or 15 minutes kind of walking through the results of this really detailed cam and intake swap that we did. And we really want to take some questions. We're probably going to do a more detailed video on that and try to keep it concise. So I think questions from people will help us kind of focus that, maybe 10-minute video
Right.
on things that are going to be most relevant to.
So we got to note that the volume is very low. Let me just make sure we're not muted or something. This thing shows I'm good. I can probably turn the volume up. Give me 1 second. Let's go work on that.
Thank you for the input on it.
Let's see here. All right, we're on full blast now. Let's see if that's any better.
So we'll do an audio check here. We just raised the volume. Is that any better?
Testing.
Testing 1, 2. It's kind of low. All right. Maybe we'll just go right to the phone. That's weird because these mics usually work really good. We got microphones right here.
Which, I don't know what the part is.
Go ahead and talk.
Testing.
Yeah. That's mute. All right. You're off mute. I muted yours and then put it on. Bear with us here for a second.
Yeah, is this any better?
And I'm on literally full blast with this. Let's try one other thing here.
But I don't think this has anything to do with it. Volume is better. Now, let's try that.
How about that now? I turned it all the way up on everything. That's as good as it can go. When you get closer to the camera, it's better. That's odd. Let's see. It was loud and clear when you were near the camera. Now it's low. All right.
I wonder if this had a camera and not on the.
Let's just do this. Watch this. There's a fan running. Talk now, Brian.
How is that? Is that better? Worse?
I unplugged everything. So is that better or worse? Because because now we're just off of the phone. We might have to speak up a little. And we're gonna do this. How about that? This is gonna be better. All right.
I'm holding Abe personally accountable.
Yeah, hey, this is on Abe because he's not here to work on the microphones. How about now? Because now we're just going right off. We're not using these mics. I turned this off. I unplugged it, and everything should be going right through the phone. So let's see. Same. Nope.
I think what happened was when that was plugged in, it wasn't
It wasn't connected.
I bet you have to, do you have to flick something to say take the external mic as opposed to just,
No, it should just work. But I mean, they should be able to hear us.
Well,
Just that's close enough now.
it's gonna be difficult.
Slightly better.
Okay.
Well, I can move that when we do that deal. And hold it
Okay.
right up to you. I mean, that's pretty darn close to the thing. Your
Okay,
brother says you can hear fine. And if he can hear, then I think we're good.
yeah, brother
We
Al
can
can
take
hear.
this off then. Brother,
Yeah.
let me shut your camera off. We're going just basic phone tonight.
Brother Al, do you have your hearing aids turned up?
Turn all your volume up, everybody, because that's what we're doing tonight. And we've been going all day long. So we've been on the dyno. We got a nice group of people watching. I think we should get started. So
Okay.
I'll officially welcome everybody to the channel. I'm going to speak up. And Brian has a beverage. Welcome to the Rev and Evan channel. You've probably all subscribed, but if you haven't, hit that subscribe button. We have a lot of neat things to talk about. So my day so far has been fly to Detroit. I landed it before 9 o'clock. Picked up a beautiful Brittany Blue Heritage Edition Shelby GT500 from Ford that I'll be driving to the NMCA race in Norwalk this weekend. And I know your wife really likes that car.
That's good.
Yes, that's a good start. I made
She's a tough critic.
She really is. Made a stop at Ford Performance today. So I hung out with the gang at Ford Performance and they gave me a look at the Bulge car, which is the car you saw at Woodward and it's seen all over the interwebs with the big bulge in the hood. What's under the hood? You're gonna find out either
I know.
tomorrow or Friday.
I know.
I know you know, but you're gonna find out tomorrow or
It's just
Friday.
air. The bulge is,
It's fake.
yeah.
It's not fake.
Yeah, it's a Trojan horse.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Brian's all wound up. We just got him off the dyno. And
A nerve-wracking.
it was a nerve-wracking experience. Although there was no smoke, oil leakage, parts stayed in it. Anyhow, so we're gonna show you a video revealing what's under the hood of that car. So
Not today.
no, stay tuned to the channel. And then I got a look at two brand new parts from Ford Performance, which we are gonna talk about one of them today briefly, and the other one will be a video that's coming up. More reasons to stay on the Rev and Evan channel, never leave. So tonight, we're gonna talk about the results of what we've done, I would say the last 2 months, with testing Godzilla intake manifolds and camshafts. And Brian has literally done swap on every single possible combination, every intake with every cam. It's a lot of work that we did for you guys, so you can see the results of everything from what we'll call a mild street application to a higher end street application, because everything we did was on an 11-to-1 motor on pump gas.
Yep.
So Brian, I'm going to give it to you, let you start to talk about the engine, and we do already have a couple of questions, but we're going to wait a little bit to answer those, because I think we want to get through a couple things first.
Sure. So what might be good to start with, we'll talk about new products coming maybe after.
Okay.
Because we do want to, I think take some time to go through, there's a mountain of data. And one of the things that, people that do testing and experiments, it's, gathering the data is almost the easy part. Making sense of, dozens of runs and dozens of combinations and in a place that you can really make clear recommendations what takes a bit of time. So what I suggest we do is maybe get the camera a little closer so people want to take screenshots, they're more than welcome of the data. And then we're going to talk about some of the recommendations. So I think that would be the best thing, and that would go through the engine.
Before we even do that though,
Yes.
give everybody a brief synopsis of, I think, the breakdown of the engine. What is this engine?
That's not one of the slides.
Oh,
That's not one of the
this
slides.
guy's a pro. Forget about it.
Not one of the slides.
Look at that. It even says right behind me, Ford Godzilla 7.3 camshaft and intake development.
So what I might ask you to do, Evan, if you don't mind, is just when I ask you to hit the next key, that way I can be close to the mic. But yeah, look in the screen and let's make sure that.
This key here?
Yes.
All right, I can do it.
Yeah, so what we want to do is be a little patient with us folks so we can get this as close as possible to being full screen for you. There we go, hold that there for a minute.
You can see it on my computer.
Yep,
That's pretty good.
yep, so let's just,
Look at this.
okay, hope that's about, I think as close as we,
This is gonna fall off though.
yeah, that's,
Just back that up a little bit.
okay, let's move this a little bit.
It's behind, so you're gonna go too close.
No, we are,
All right,
trust me.
here we go.
Okay. All right, thanks for your patience. Let's do it again. We're just going through this so that it was the easiest, quick. As Evan said, our plan was to try to figure out how to put this up, PowerPoint right into the.
But Abe left.
Yeah, Abe didn't come, so and as Evan said, we were on the dyno running something else literally 10 minutes before this started, and we kind of rushed in here. So. Apologize for that. So anyways, here's the makeup. So again, this was just run on our water break dyno, corrected to standard temperature and pressure, or SAE J607. It's 60 degree Fahrenheit, 2992 barometer of dry air. Obviously electric water pump. All the testing we did was done with our dynamometer headers, which we kind of learned after running the ultimate headers actually kind of hurt that mid-range torque, but we needed to keep the same headers throughout the experiment for consistency. We had no air restriction either, but we didn't put any fancy bell mounts or anything. These are just the throttle bodies as they exist.
Right.
It is pump gas from the local Love's truck stop right up the road. And what we originally were going to do was to sweep the cams using this stock VCT. We found that I made a technical error, rookie mistake. We put roller cam bearings in this motor because we're going to be taking the cam in and out so much. I didn't want to take a chance at damaging the
Right.
Babbitt type bearings.
Slide in. I think there's room for them so they can see you talk. I think he can.
You
It's
know
gonna
it's-
take a second to. There you go.
But my head's pretty big and fat.
That's all right.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. So anyways, so when we put the roller cam bearings in, is most, the engine builders online would know that those are not pressure fed, they're just flash fed what's in there. So the high pressure feed, the cam bearing wasn't there, and that high pressure feed is what feeds the VCT unit, so the VCT didn't work. So what we had to do is go back to the previous testing we did and kind of take our best guess. Some of the camshafts we ran in 2 configurations. I can probably flip this myself now. Okay, the engine, it's a stock block, it's a stock crank, stock oil pump. We had the Willis Performance Visitor Engine Development Stage 1 head, so those are stock valves in it. Calais pack springs, Johnson low travel lifters. Again, those are really a must when you're doing the high performance work. Manton push rods, which were select fit so that we could get the right spec for preload. All the cams were manufactured and engineered by Calais. 11-to-1 compression diamond pistons, K1 rods, model bearings, and we had the WPE fuel rails made for us by Indy Power Products using a 53-pound injector. So, sorry for talking so quick, but it's up there. And bottom line is, it's a pretty simple motor, but to rev at high RPMs consistently, reliably, we had to change pistons and rods, in my opinion. So that's that. Okay, so here's the camshafts that were in there. The 5 unique camshafts that were run, but 2 of the camshafts we ran with 2 different cam phases. So the specs are up there. I will not read through them and be boring. If you're the ones that are interested and need this information, please take a screenshot of it. But the range, again, just from very, very mild 220 duration at 50 up to reasonably aggressive for a hydraulic roller 254 duration at 50.
And just for reference, so the biggest cam was what?
254 on the intake, 264 on the exhaust, 112 lobe separation angle, and 650 lift on both
Right.
the intake and exhaust.
And we do have a 675 lift cam.
We did. Yes.
What is Do you know the stock lift?
The stock lift on the intake is somewhere around 510 and around 610 on the exhaust, if memory serves me right.
Gotcha. So it does have a relatively big lift-wise cam
Yes.
from the factory, and we're feeding almost 460 cubic inches, so
440.
close enough to
Small
460.
motor.
I said almost 460.
Looks
All right, we
small
did
little motor.
move. Next.
Okay, next slide.
Next slide.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're just going to roll through these quick so you can see the intakes. So this was just a stock intake and throttle body. No, I did it wrong. There's the Indy Power Products configuration, BTR intake. This was one that I put on, but I did not run this throttle body. I ended up running a drive-by-wire throttle body. It just made the change of intakes simpler, as I didn't have to hook up mechanical linkage. Okay, this is the Innovate, which is one sexy looking intake. Nothing's cooler than 8 stacks atmosphere.
Nope.
Except maybe a blower, but anyways.
I'll take the stack.
All right, summary results. And I always say intake manifold, there's a lot of decisions to take place. It's not just which one I want. You know, do you want it to fit under a stock hood? Are you going to make this engine a really high RPM engine? Are you looking just to have something in like a Bronco that you want torque and have it fit? You know, what are you looking for? So there isn't a single answer, but as we go through the results, hopefully we'll point you to what may work for your specific application. And again, the stock engine under these configurations, I think this is important. You know, the engine I think is rated at 425 horsepower and 450, 60, I forget, foot-pounds of torque, but that's by J1349 as opposed to standard temperature and pressure. That has an exhaust system and an air induction. We didn't run that. It has the water pump working. So when you take all those factors into account, the baseline isn't 425. We're not picking up 200 and some horsepower. The baseline is really 500. We go through that the following pages. So what we did do, I kind of picked 2 best choices. There will be people that just don't want to get into the bottom end of the engine, right? I want to swap the cam because the stock one is kind of small, real wide lobe separation. I want something that sounds a little bit more like an engine. And I don't want to touch the bottom end. And there's other folks that will want to get into the bottom end and rev the engine to its potential. And you know, this engine, I mean, we've got an enormous amount of dyno time on it. And the very last configuration we ran previous to today, with the testing that we did, made the highest power. So this engine with all the runs is still extremely healthy.
And I want to interject that we will be putting up a video showing all of the different intake manifolds running. So, I mean, the engine doesn't really sound a whole lot different from the outside, the dyno cell, but you will get to see each engine run with the different configurations of at least the intake manifolds.
Yep. Okay, so now you see why it starts to get complicated. So this is the stock intake camshaft comparison. So the lines that are kind of flat across the page are torque. The ones that are going up across the page are horsepower. The line colors are matching camshafts, right? So you look at all this and say, wow, you know, where do I go from here? Because, you know, you get a camshaft. Let me do one little thing here. Laser pointer from my old teaching days at University of Michigan. So you gotta have laser pointer. So, you know, somebody say, oh, wow, I want this camshaft. This camshaft, look at all the horsepower it makes. Yeah, but it's making the horsepower, you know, above 60 to 100, you know, is where it outmatches the one right below it. But it has a lot, you know, it lost a lot of torque down here. So if you're putting this in a Bronco that you only want to drive on the street, you probably don't want the highest horsepower combination. Or if you say, hey, I don't want to get into the expense of going into the bottom end, I don't want to spin it beyond 6100.
Right.
Well, then you're going to pick a different cam. So that's what the next page.
Yeah. Or if you have a very light car with a lot of gear that you don't really need max torque, but you want all the horsepower,
Then you're going to go to this one. Oh look, little friend's fly. That is a fly. Okay, so let's go into this. So here's that curve simplified. So first thing that you see, what I added to here is a reference. This is the stock engine, these green lines, okay? And you see it peaked about 5,000. And torque peak was actually below the 4,100 that I was doing all the pulls on, because again, it's a very long runner intake, very good for low end torque. But I think it's important so you can really appreciate each and every one of these configurations picked up a lot of area under the curve. So my choice, if I was running a stock intake, not worried about RPM, would be this 175009 cam, installed 4 degrees retarded, that made 621 horsepower, 596 foot-pounds of torque. However, if I'm constraining it to 6,100, you might say that is still a good camshaft. I wouldn't debate you on that. But my thought would be, it's going to be pulling so good up here, it's going to be hard for you to constrain yourself and put the rev limiter at 6,100, because it's going to be, you know, pulling, this thing's going to pull nice to 66, 6,700 RPM.
But you're still talking about stock rods and pistons.
Right, so that's why I would pick this blue line, which has more torque below 4,500, where you're going to be driving a lot of the time if you're a stock bottom end guy, you know, keeping the cast pistons hyperutectic and the powdered metal rods. So that, and we'll have a little summary slide at the end on this as well. Next one, we put in the Indy Power Products intake. That's the one that looks like an old 4-barrel carburetor intake. So again, you know, lots of data there, lots of different torque curve shapes. You know, you look down here, I mean, you're talking, you know, just changing camshafts, everything else being identical. You know, you're talking over 50 foot-pounds of torque down low, and you could be talking, you know, as much as 30 horsepower up at the top end. So again, same type of discussion. If I've got an engine limited to 6,100 RPM, or if I've got an engine that I want to go to unlimited, let the configuration go where it wants. So with this one, the choice was a 175004. This is that biggest duration cam, but we installed this at 4 degrees advanced. This made 642 horsepower at 6,700 and 524 foot-pounds of torque. So still, although, you know, lower torque than even the stock intake made, you know, you're still making over 500 foot-pounds of torque, which isn't insignificant. If you got the stock bottom end, of course, I would recommend going to this blue curve where it outperforms that other cam all the way to 6,000. Again, if we're cutting this thing off at 61, that's going to be the one that you want to use. And even with this very short, mild cam, you know, it's going to be hard to limit it to 6,100 when it's going to be pulling so strong. But even with that, it made 601 horsepower, and at peak, which was 6,400, but again, if we're limiting it to 6,100, it made 595 horsepower and 541 foot-pounds. Okay, going to the Brian Tooley Racing intake. Now we're starting to see some fairly sizable horsepower numbers. So if you look there, you can see horsepower up to 685 horsepower. It has, you know, some still good torque, depending on the cam, as much as 550 plus. But again, you know, there's a big range in torque at this low end as you change camshafts and you start to close that intake valve late and, you know, adjust the timing.
Yep, so 685 horse, keep in mind 11-to-1 compression on 93 octane gas that Brian got at the local truck stop.
Yep, and yeah, there was no signs of detonation whatsoever. But again, I will say, you know, we're pulling this thing like from, you know, 4,000s, because we kind of eliminate that first point, because normally it's, you know, the first and last point are a little funny sometimes in the dyno. So, you know, if you had this in a Super Duty, loaded at, you know, max GVW, towing that 30,000 pound trailer up Davis Dam at 2,500 RPM with 11-to-1, you're probably going to be a bit spark limited. So, but again, these aren't intended for that. These are intended for resto mods, retrofit vehicles is what we're talking about. All right, so let's do the same thing again with the two different camshafts, depending on what we did with the bottom end. Again, the green is the stock horsepower and stock torque, and this is kind of interesting. I mean, if you look at here, you know, this 500 horsepower, which is still pretty stout, you know, compared to what you got with these I would say relatively mild changes in a super daily driver friendly vehicle up at 685.
And being able to rev to 7,000.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, this one to be open, I probably should have made the pull this, the power peak. So I said, we knew we were doing a lot of runs on this engine. I didn't want to beat it up. But this thing would have been really happy out probably 7,600 RPM. And if we constrained it to 6,100 RPM, we would pick that 002 cam, that real mild one again.
Yep.
Installed 2 degrees retarded. That made 610 horsepower at 61 and 550 foot-pounds. So again, another really, I think super impressive results. Then we go to the Innovate. We've got the runners to atmosphere. So this was, overall the best performing intake. And you can see this time we're seeing torque figures up over 600 foot-pounds, and we're also seeing that 685 horsepower again. So I can't say.
So good to hear the correct verbiage, foot-pounds.
Yes. We'll go into that later. That's my own personal pet peeve because, it's pound. It doesn't matter, right? It's a multiplication foot-pounds or meter newtons if you prefer.
Right.
It's cumulative, but I like to say in this country we've said foot-pounds for many years, and it's going to be, hell's going to freeze over before you hear me say pound-feet. So there. All right. Now let's go to getting this
It's
down
the
to
Tim Allen
yeah.
setup.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one where you can see what I did. I did a little change on folks because, and we'll talk about it later, but this 004 cam installed 4 degrees advanced was so stout. I said I want to run all 3 stack plates with the Innovate on it. So this actually made 697 horsepower with the medium stacks at 7,000 RPM, and made 584 foot-pounds of torque at 5,100.
And you said it might have made more with the other headers.
Yeah, and these are all with the dyno headers. I think and we'll talk about that because we've got slides in here on the ultimate headers, and while the dyno headers and the ultimate headers came pretty close at the high speeds, what the ultimate headers really did was fill in what people talk about this little bit of a torque dive here. But again,
You think it was due to the tube diameter?
yeah, on the dyno headers, when we made those, we were running everything from like that 590, 600 horsepower engine all the way up to, a 1,500 horsepower or Whipple supercharged or Pro Charge motor. So, I one set of dyno headers, keep it simple.
Right.
So, but even with this, so I did do a little change up on people. I did put the medium runners in. With the long trumpets, it made 685, same as the BTR intake, but it did make more torque. But again, if we're limiting this to 6,100 RPM, we still made 623 horsepower with this combination. Okay, let's go. So here it is. Recap on one slide. This is the one to do the screenshot on. If you're only going to do a couple screenshots. So what this is RPM unconstrained with the Diamond Weisco pistons and Calais K1 or Calais rods. So again, you've got the bottom end that you can run wherever you want. And again, I say wherever you want. Would I run this at 10,000? Probably not.
No.
But within the reason of what we're talking here. So at the top of the slide, this is just recapping what the stock engine did. And then we start to modify, okay, if I keep the intake stock, what cam would I choose and how much power? I picked up I can pick up 116 horsepower and 38 foot-pounds of torque. And that's again with the Dave Visner cylinder heads on it, stage 1, and with the 11-to-1 compression ratio. And that's, about in the camshaft.
Right.
So that's pretty good pickup, over 600 horsepower. There's not a lot of street cars that are hydraulic roller cams that you're just going to drive on the street and make 620 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque.
And for a quarter-mile reference, everybody, if you're interested, you can check out the video we did on Dave Henderlong's T-Bird. Dave has a stock Godzilla engine with just basically a cold air intake, open throttle body, and a performance tune. And he went 1070s, I think, so far.
Yeah, with the boat fully stock, 100% stock, I think he went 1080 something. And then in worse weather conditions, he put that 002 cam in.
Right, that's right.
And I think he went a 60 with
Right,
it.
so he went 1080, but at close to 130 miles an hour, right? Or 120. 26 miles an hour with a bone stock engine with, like you said, still had log manifolds on it.
Yep.
And it had open exhaust, but it also had just an OBR setup and a performance tune. So that's a stock engine going 10s in a Fox body that weighs about 3,000 pounds. So now you're adding 100 something horsepower with very basic modifications. I mean, 100 horsepower when you're already going 1080s will get you close to the 9s.
Yep, I think so. So then, if you're the guy that says, hey, I want to open the hood on my 66 Fairlane, but I don't want to put an FE in it, you know, and I want to kind of have that look, you put the Indy Power Products intake on that. You put their valve covers on, dress up, it looks really cool. And again, with that, we picked up 137 horsepower, but we did lose 34 foot-pounds of peak torque. That intake does weigh a little bit more. We've got weight in the height here as well. So the height is the maximum height of the intake at the highest point versus the mounting flange for the cylinder head. Again, the Fords, ever since the 462 valve came out in 1991, had that flat flange on the intake. So at the peak of the throttle body, it's 9¼ inches. However, at the very front, where you might get into some packaging problems on a sloping hood, it's only 6 inches there because the throttle body's in the middle. Moving forward, if we go to the Brian Tooley racing intake, it liked that big cam, 4-degree advance, 685 horsepower, 560 foot-pounds, picks up 180 horsepower over stock, a little bit of torque. It weighs about the same as the Indy Power Products, but this is that super ultra low profile.
Right.
And also extremely nice intake for boost.
I was going to say, it's fantastic for boost. It's aluminum intake, so very solid. Crank up the boost and have yourself a day.
Yep. And again, this is the intake that we have on our drag car. You know, we have a stock Fox body put on it, so it's a low profile. And again, it's 588 at the front and 430. I'm sorry, 588 at the highest point, but at the front of it, because the throttle body points down, it's only 4.38 inches. The stock intake by comparison is 6.75, and that's kind of at the peak and also where the front of the throttle body points up.
Right.
So again, super low profile.
And all this stuff is available, by the way. You can contact Brian. Brian, tell him your website.
Yes, it's willisengines.com is my website. The Brian Tooley intake, we're expecting for mid to end of November, the next run of the castings. We don't have any of those at this point.
Right. Now, the Danbury guys did message me and say that anything moving forward, they'd like to be involved in providing us parts to get involved in a test like this. We didn't use that manifold just because we didn't have one at the ready, but nothing wrong with the Danbury one.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think I mentioned that before as in one of the discussions. I wish I would have had one that I could have used on this experiment. It would have been really good. I will probably do something like this again in the December through February time frame.
Right.
Probably do it with a 12-to-1 motor, and you know, hone this in a little bit, and also make it so I can use the VCT.
Right.
So I can do a lot better job at dialing it in.
Yep. And guys, I appreciate everybody being patient going through this. We will be
Entertain questions shortly.
Yep, there you go.
There we go. We're team.
Took the words
I
right out of my mouth.
I knew.
You read my mind.
All right. So now let's go to the Innovate. It made 685 horsepower, a little lower RPM, more torque, 180 horsepower over stock. This is a long runner, 27 foot-pounds. It only weighs 14 pounds. And this one was the 9-inch stacks. If we go to the Innovate, the very best Innovate, which was the medium runners, 697 horsepower at 7,584 foot-pounds, 192 horsepower over stock, just pretty badass.
And they do make a short 5-inch, right?
Yeah, and I'll show some results from that.
Cool.
And with the same cam. Now, if I'm saying you're going for the safe stock lower end, so you don't want to get in the bottom end, but you just want to put this into your 69 Mustang and you know, have a nice reliable powertrain, you know, what do you get? So if you keep the stock intake on, which is going to be difficult because of that, the way it points up, but Ford Performance might have an answer, then you can pick up 92 horsepower with the 002 cam, with the Visner heads, and you're going to make about 500. You know, this is kind of our go-to 600 horsepower, 600 foot-pound package. Again, you know, they don't all make that. You know, again, what we do here is the number is the number. I don't try to tune something to make people happy. This engine made 597. I've had a similar combination make, you know, 592. I've had make 602. It's just, you know,
Right.
the day of the correction factor. If we go to the Indy Power products, you're still picking up 90 horsepower over stock, making, with that 002 cam, making just under 600. Brian Tooley Racing 610, and the Innovate 8 long, you're still making 623 horsepower. So that's all pretty cool. Okay. Additional studies, you know, we got into this, and of course, once you get into it, you know, people find out, and they want you to run some stuff for them. So we did add, first one, we've already gone through the data. The second one is I wanted to show you the results of the best cam for high RPM, the 175004, 4 degrees advanced, with all stack latents on the Innovate.
Right.
And then also we had an opportunity to evaluate the ultimate headers versus the stock and our dynamometer headers, and that was eye-opening for me. I didn't expect the results for an off-the-shelf bolt-on header to be as good as these headers were.
On this engine.
On this engine, yeah, exactly. So here's the ultimate headers, and again, this was just a 230, 240, 2 cam, 108 lobe separation angle. This is one that really, it was the cam that I had in when it became available to run this test, right? So this had 108 lobe separation angle. And you can see the blue line is the stock exhaust manifolds, the green line is the ultimate headers, and the yellow line is what I've been running on my dyno all the time. So you can see the dyno headers kind of come in at the top end because they were so big. You know, we have 4-inch collectors on there, 2 to 2 1/8 to 2 1/4 stepped. The ultimate headers are 2 inches all the way through, and of course the stock manifolds are just that. So the interesting thing to me was how much is picked up in the mid-range. So you can see beyond like 4,700 RPM, so like from 48 to 62, it picked up 16 average horsepower, even though the peak only changed about 10. So
Right. How
again,
much average torque through the middle? It's huge, especially as you even at 5,500 to 6,000.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big jump in torque.
Yeah, you were getting a ton of torque. That's why you're getting so much horsepower, right? Because, you know, horsepower is just torque, you know, times 52 divided by RPM. So or times RPM divided by 52. So, and we're measuring torque on the dyno. So yeah, just really good feeling in the mid-range for sure. So wanted to share those results. Really surprising. I didn't expect my dyno headers, I guess, to perform as bad as they did versus the ultimate, but when we put them on originally in the first test, we said, we picked up about 5 horsepower, stock manifolds are pretty good.
Yeah, but in contrast, you'd probably see the reverse of this had you put the ultimate headers on your supercharged 1,700 horsepower engine. They might be 30 or 40 horsepower worse.
Absolutely, yep. Yeah, we don't know that at this point, for sure. So now what I'm doing in my dyno, we have a set of ultimate headers for the NA stuff, and I'm gonna run the dyno headers for the blown stuff.
There you go. Knowing you, I know you're going to run the ultimate headers on your motor just to see what happens.
Well, maybe. You never know. So this is really cool. This is this typical, you know, the Helmholtz resonator stuff that you hear about. You know, you change the runner length. You know, long runners, you're going to get the low end torque peak. Short runners, you're going to get the higher end torque peak. So this is at Innovate. Of course, with all this stuff, we have those Johnson low travel lifters, which I absolutely love. The cool thing about those, because, you know, we're doing all these cam swaps, right? And there have been a couple folks I know, including a customer and our friend Dave Penderlong, when they did the old trick where you spin the cam and they go up in that little plastic saddle and the lifters stay there. Well, if they start to slip down before you get the new cam in, they fall into the pan. Now with the tie bar lifter, they can't fall into the paint.
Right.
On the other hand, you don't have to hold up. So I mentioned that video that you did, Evan, where we talked about doing a cam change, you know, the stuff that Dave Jarvis made for me, with the little long magnets.
Yep.
So we use that to hold them up, put a little clip on them, hold them in place, and then do the change that way. So those are really cool. So anyways, enough of my sidetracking. So here you see, guess what? This is the longest runner, this is the medium runner, and this is the short runner. So it behaves exactly as the book says it should. You love it when you get the textbook example. But what you see here is that, you know, it really like that medium runner length. What I'm unclear about is I wish I could have run the ultimate headers on these, because you can see for some reason with this medium runner, I got this big dip in the middle. And I can't explain it. It is the data. I don't know if it was a cross between the intake and exhaust tuning with that runner length that was just really, really negative there.
Right.
But it's the data that I've got. So anyways, you can see the long, medium, short with the with you know, the A/B. So I think that's the last slide. People are saying thank God, and maybe they'll listen to some of our questions.
Switch the chair back out. All right, back. Chair swap. Bear with us for a second. Oh, that's the one.
Okay, so do you want to scroll to there and see if we fill some questions, Evan?
Sure, it'd be a great idea, Brian. Would you mind? All
Take
right.
our beer instead.
I'll drink another beer. All right, so let's go back. We got a lot of messages. We got people hung in there, about the same amount of people when we started, so that's a good thing. This is all talking about audio, which we had a problem with in the beginning. Hit the like button, everybody. We do appreciate that you hit the like button. Look at this. We have our awesome behind-the-scenes staff helping out. I want a 7.3 swap in a Camaro. No, and you have to spell Camaro properly. You misspelled Camaro.
Hey, don't pick on spelling, because like that's where my Achilles heel is.
C-A-M-A-R-O.
I'm so bad at spelling. I gotta share this, right? So I had this really nice lady that worked for me when I was director of powertrain operations.
Right.
And my spelling was so bad that when the spell checked it spelled a different word. And she came up and goes, "Brian, what did you mean by this?" I looked this word up. It's like, oh boy. I said, yeah, I better take a little bit more time with my spelling. Don't pick on spelling.
All right, sorry. All right, we'll go
And
with
one in the Camaro would be very cool. Do you know, and I forget the gentleman's name, but he is putting a Godzilla in a 1959 El Camino. He's gonna make it all-wheel drive.
Now that's cool.
And our very own Jake Heffron is putting one in an S10.
I saw a couple go in some GM products, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, pretty good.
All right, so let's go. Laren has Laren Rich,
Okay.
who we know from helping us out with some parts. We're going to talk about his company in a little bit.
Yep.
Brian, would you say these combinations are, as of today with current parts, sustainable? I would have to say, personally, yes. Motor wear, things like that, but
Yeah, as I mentioned, like, you know, that 697 horsepower run was like one of the last runs we did.
Right.
You know, and we did check the pressure on the motor. They were all the same. I didn't leak it, but I was very pleased with how it's going to go. I mean, we beat the shit out of them. Then I mean, it was running clean. I had it running clean. I had it running clean fat. You know, washing boards, but yeah.
Carl says torque is meaningless in terms of power production. I disagree with that, but to each his own. There's no such thing as horsepower. It's just a formula based on torque. You measure
Well, it's the
torque.
rate at which work is done.
Right.
So there's power.
But it's based off of torque.
It's a rate at which work is done. You have to fucking measure torque, so torque exists. But I agree.
Alright.
You gotta look at the power. Power is what moves vehicles, and low end torque is nothing more than low end power.
Right. So Kelly Mead, please tell me, there's a chance this 7.3 can be a possibility for a retro Boss 429. Every other retro version has come back.
You mean as a, you mean a
Production,
current?
yeah,
No.
you're not gonna see a 7.3 or a 6.8 Mustang.
You would much sooner see an all-electric Mustang in today's environment than you would see a Godzilla Mustang.
Right, so you're gonna have to make your own Boss 429.
Which, you know, is a very good point, if I could just diverge for a minute. You know, you start to look at the price of like, an 05 through 2010 Mustang before the Coyote went in there.
Right.
They're pretty, you know, reasonable. I mean, like 3,500 to 5,000 bucks.
Sure.
You know, so you can get one of those, put a Godzilla in it, and you can have a pretty nice car for a pretty reasonable price, I think. Especially to start with a 6-cylinder car.
Yeah, I've seen at the track a few Godzillas in different chassis now, and when you look at it, it really doesn't look any bigger than a Windsor.
Because it is, I remember we did those
Yeah,
measurements.
yeah, it's like an inch wider or an inch on each side wider, but it really fits in there nice.
And narrower than a Cleveland.
Yep, narrow. Is it narrower than a Cleveland?
Yeah, 'cause remember we had
Did we
my,
measure the Cleveland?
we had my SC one-headed X275.
That's right. Yep. Okay. What was all the 6.8 talk? What was that all? Was that all just a joke?
No, the 6.8 was announced, so I cannot speak out of school, even though I've retired 4.5 years, so I don't have the latest information, but it was announced at Windsor Engine Plant that they are going to be making a 6.8, and it will be going into probably some computers, is my guess.
Right. Unity Motorsports Garage, the 7.3 power production versus dollar is pretty good. We would agree with that, I think,
Yep.
yes. When you look at what we're doing here, you're talking, again, yes, the intake manifolds aftermarket are expensive, but I think the
Can
cool
we talk about
factor-
that for a minute?
Sure.
So, if you think about it, like the stock intake works pretty good, right? I mean, if you're
Yep.
doing a 6,000 RPM or lower. If you need the package, I mean, the Brian Tooley Racing intake is about $1,000, which they tell me is gonna be about the price of the equivalent LSs that they're gonna be offering. The Indy Power products, I believe, is $950. The Innovate retails about $4,800. But if you buy any individual cylinder or individual cylinder throttle body system, I mean, you're gonna be $4,800 to $6,000. So I think the prices are really good versus what you're gonna pay for something else. Like the lifters in this motor, they're the same lifters that fit in an LS. So it's not because it's a Ford lifter cost more, it is the identical part number.
Right.
So, I think the dollar to power ratio is good, especially when you remember, you know, we're not touching the block, we're not touching the crank, we're using stock head castings,
Right.
CNC, and again, these had stock bells. So we charge $1,700 with exchange, for these heads loaded. So you give us stock heads, these heads $1,700,
Right.
and go. And these heads are also one of the nice features that Dave Visner thought about these was he was a little nervous about how far the spark plug protruded in the chamber. There's kind of a glump of aluminum there. He's worried about maybe a hot spot. So he cut that back, and then we machined the spark plug so it takes a normal gasketed 3/4 inch spark plug.
Okay.
So I think it is a really good value.
And I will let one cat out of the bag. It's been highly rumored that Ford Performance is coming out with a 7.3 intake.
Really?
Yep. All I will say is keep watching the channel. Stay tuned over the next week or so. We have some really great information on.
Can I say anything? Can we say anything?
What do you want to say?
I just want to say, I think it's a really nice low profile manifold.
Yep.
I think it's going to do a lot of good for those folks that aren't looking to go higher RPM.
Yep. Don't say much more.
And I think they'll be happy with what it can do.
Stay tuned to the channel. You heard that here first. We get a lot of cool Ford info. Let's put it that way. So let's see if we got any more questions. Let's see. 2007 Mustang, that'd be perfect for a drop in 7.3. Yes. I mean, think about it compared to a Coyote. Granted, the Coyote's a lot smaller in displacement, but to get, 600 to 700 horsepower out of an NA Coyote is really hard to do
Yeah, and I think if Chris Holbrook was here, he'd probably challenge that statement.
for the street.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for the street, but the other thing is from a, just driving around town, I'm not racing, I'm just having a cool cruiser. I mean, having 600 foot-pounds of torque, that's really hard.
There's nothing better than tip-in throttle response.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's probably the difference in the street car.
What size is the Pro Charger on your race car?
F1A 94,
Big.
little one, 15. As far as blowers go, it's a little one.
Little one. And Brian did test the car the other day. Hopefully you can make it out to NMCA this weekend.
We'll see. That we're going to work hard to make it happen. The big issue we had was we had an oil leak, and we don't want to go back to correct the oil leak. I mean, we were able to contain it at the test day, but if we get that corrected tomorrow, and if NMCA is cooperative, we'll be there.
I may know a few people over there.
You may know someone. You know a guy?
I know a guy, I got a guy. That's another big Rev and Evan announcement. I'm going to be doing a lot of content with the NMRA and the NMCA. That's going to be a fun deal.
Awesome.
Yep, working with the digital team in those two organizations to bring the fans of NMRA racing and shows and events and NMCA better and hopefully more bold web coverage videos. So if you got one of those events within 100 miles of your house, check out the schedule and come on out, say hello to me. We'll be out there doing videos, we'll be out there covering the racing and doing all kinds of stuff, having fun with those events.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm extremely proud of the work that Pro Media has done, right? I mean, they've been, there were other people like trying to, way back in the day, back when I was young, right, when we were doing when the Pro 50 stuff was going on, and you had Fun Ford Weekend, you had other people like try to put a race package together that would work for the spectators and work for the racers.
Right.
And here Steve has been able, I think, over 20 years. 25,
This is the 2023 will be the 25th anniversary of NMRA.
Right. So again, what a great accomplishment, and again, not too dissimilar to John Sears, what he's done with Ultra Street and X275 and down along. There's a few promoters out there that really had good insight to the racers and the fans to really put on a great show. And I think obviously with your add to NMCA is just showing that Steve is always looking for continuous improvement, never settling. And that's why he's had a great program for over pushing 25 years now.
Yep, and we're going to do neat stuff next year in Orlando. If you haven't heard, the Bradenton events will be moved to Orlando. That's a whole nother topic. Some people are happy about it, others aren't, but it's happening, so jump on board. But
3 hours less toll from Michigan.
There you go. Orlando, and at the Norwalk event, we are in the beginning stages of planning 2 giant Fox Body themed events. So part reunion, part race, part show, swap meet. If you are into Fox Body Mustangs, you are not going to want to miss these 2 events, and especially the Norwalk one, because that's where I want to do the big blowout. I want Joe De Silva's red car. I want, you know what car I want there, Brian? I want your red car there. You can bring the black one, but we want the red one.
Well, for a reunion event, that would be the right car for that.
Yep, and we're gonna have just a show. We'll just have a corral where you can look at all the old Pro 50 cars. If like Mike Murillo's got his Super Street car or his current car, we want the core Fox Body. We want to show people what Fox Body Mustangs are all about, from doing the old 10-minute tune-up all the way up to guys who race Pro 50 and girls too, and obviously a lot of females out there racing Mustangs. And I think it will be a big deal because.
And don't forget about Jason Liesel, time champion, and just recently purchased by
The Wheelock family.
Yeah, by the Wheelock family, and bringing that car back out.
Yep.
I think they kept the same livery on it.
They
So,
did.
Really, really cool piece of history.
Yep. So, but Coyote stockers, NHRA stockers, street cars. If you got a Fox Body, we're going to show you some restoration tips. We'll have experts in the Fox Body realm. We're looking to get the folks, hopefully, from some of the different aftermarket companies. If you are involved in any of that, you want to be involved in either one of those events, you can contact me that my new email is esmith@promediapub.com, and we're going to be accepting ideas. I want a big swap meet. I even thought about having something like old Fox body there that maybe we like throw parts on all weekend long and possibly do a giveaway or something like that, where guys like you or everybody jumps in and you install a header. So like all the name guys actually put their hands on it and work on it, and somebody maybe drives it away at the end of the week. And again, don't hold me to that, but Nancy thinks it's a great idea behind us.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to come up with cool ideas, swap meet, new parts.
Sure, and especially if you guys know in advance, like one of the things done locally in Michigan here, one of the radio stations, they did what they call a stone soup car. So what they do is it's 100%, everything's donated, the work's 100% donated, then they sell raffle tickets, and then 100% of the proceeds, not like 99.9%,
Right.
100% of the sales of the raffle tickets go to charity.
That's a great idea.
So that's a really cool thing they did. And of course, their charity this year was something really to the veterans. I think it's vets returning home type thing.
Right.
It's really really
We
good.
definitely support the military and the veterans, everybody out there, police and firemen. We definitely support everybody who's out there helping other people and keeping us to be able to do what we love to do.
Great. As long as you don't give us tickets.
We don't make tickets. All right, so we got another question here. Let's see.
No questions on the data that we went.
Oh, look who chimed in finally.
Who's that? Abe?
Yeah.
Oh, you woke up.
Thanks, Abe.
Yeah. We're worried when we need the Abe.
Yeah. Tom Hamilton asked if you had any progress on the black car.
We had some progress. Like I could have posted something. If you go to my Facebook, I took I don't have any really original thoughts. I took a line from Gone in 60 Seconds. It says, without failure, how can you appreciate success? So we did go out Monday, right off the trailer, the car went a 109 to the 60, but we only made a 60-foot pass because we were evaluating the fuel system and getting creep up on it as opposed to putting a hole in the piston. Then we repeated that, adjusting the fuel table as opposed to tricking the fuel table. It repeated, but then we kind of ran into that oil leak, some gremlins, and we didn't really make we made one 8-mile hit when it was a turd, 119 to the 60 because of the gremlin,
Right.
and only went like 501 and 146. So if we do make it out to the NMCA race and get the testing done that tested that we need, we're obviously I'm thinking the car may be capable of the 480-ish type range.
Right. What do you think the odds are that at minimum you have it at Bowling Green?
Yeah, I think that would be a high probability.
Okay, good. So if you're looking to see the black car, I know Jim Ryder from Indy Power Products, myself, Abe will all be at Bowling Green, so we could have like a little 7-3. I'm trying to get Brian there with some stuff to do a seminar. We're working the details out on that, so you can learn a lot about 7.3s and Godzilla stuff in person from Brian, because I know, he's a busy guy, but we'll get into some of the races. We're gonna probably wrap this up pretty soon.
Can we talk about a couple new products?
No.
Okay, we're
Of
going
course we can.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
what we're gonna do.
Okay, so a couple things. Calais, an update. We talked about the head studs, the main studs. Those will be available towards mid to end of September.
Right.
The heads, again, what they had to do on this first run was go to the super premium materials just because of availability.
Right.
So the head stud kit is going to be about $550 retail, and the main stud kit's going to be about $360 retail. So anyway, so those that have been waiting for the stud kits to come out, again, Calais is leading the way with hard components in the engine. So real happy with those guys and proud of what they're doing. People keep talking about, well, when is all the aftermarket going to get on board? Well, again, the engine has not been out for 2 years yet. It came out in, I think, 2020, and it's not the 2023 yet. So it's not out.
But there's a lot out there. There's even for production trucks, there's supercharger kits and
Yeah.
things like that.
But now a new company that is specialized in that LS type slots is now getting into Godzilla slots. We got a box of parts from them today, and we're going to do a video on ITC Billet. They got some really cool stuff. We didn't have time because of the Dyno There's a couple issues that I was just struggling with to get everything sorted out. We didn't get to go through the details of what's in there. There's some cool stuff as far as motor mounts and some intake spacers and all kinds of stuff. So we'll
Coil brackets.
coil brackets to swap the coils out to smart coils. So some cool stuff. We'll probably do a video on that and just kind of walk through that and what's available and get their website. But again, it's nice to see these companies jumping on board because again, it's a simple engine and it's small and it fits a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And then Ultimate Headers called me today too, and they said that they're looking, we got the Fox body header, and they had a customer that put one in the 79 Bronco, sent some pictures, which he was really happy with, but he was very unhappy because he had to do a little bit of notching at the frame. And so he says, I think I might be doing a Bronco swap header for
Okay.
those so that they don't have to get into any fabrication work.
Nice. Is that about it?
Do that on my list, yes sir.
All right, so a little bit of housekeeping stuff. If you're a fan of the channel, I gotta actually apologize. I haven't put a video up in about 2 weeks.
The slacker.
That had some family things going on. My mother-in-law was a little bit sick. Thank God she's coming through. Had a close friend pass away. Was dealing with that. But we have a lot of cool trips coming up. I gotta say, my buddy who passed away, John Guerrero, great dude, car guy, passed away suddenly, relatively suddenly. So I have to, throw a shout out to him, throw a sip of beer to John. He's a great dude. Love that guy. Gonna miss him. But we got great stuff coming up. This weekend is NMCA at Norwalk. If you are out there and you see me walking around, or you see Brian if he makes it out, please say hello. Tell us you like the channel, and tell us what you want to see more of. Don't be afraid to come up and stop me. And then from there, I'll be coming back here for a couple things. Then I'll be at the NHRA US Nationals. If you're an NHRA fan, you happen to be there, say hello. Then I'm going right from there to New Jersey. My buddy Dave Wasenda's putting on a huge show. So if you're a Jersey person, September 11th, you'll want to stop by in Monroe. I'll have on my Facebook and my Instagram, which is Official Ford Guy, make sure you like those pages. I'll have the flyer for the car show. It's going to be huge, all Ford car show. And then we're actually coming, huge. Then we're coming back here for the reveal of the 2024 Mustang. So we should have the.
That's all the next week. That's your next 2 weeks.
I'm literally like on the road.
It's got to be ecstatic. I bet there's
she's so
Chippendale
happy.
dancers at her house.
Pool guy.
Cool dude.
Oh yeah. If you want a party, go over to my house now because there's probably a party going on.
Yeah, she hasn't chimed into it.
No, she has. You know what that means?
Yeah, I know.
She's actually at her martial arts class
Oh.
tonight. So my wife's a badass.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about anything with her around. And
I know the feeling.
she's like, I don't know what belt she is, black belt, triple black, I don't know, she's something. Tear your head off. Anyhow, so, and then we'll have the reveal. So we'll have a lot of good content on the channel. Hoping to shoot some car features for the channel this weekend at NMCA. And like I said, I'm going to be working with those guys, so make sure you follow all their pages. It's going to be fun. We got neat stuff coming up. We'll check out a couple more comments, a couple people thanking us for the content. We absolutely appreciate every one of you. Brian really does work very, very hard on the dyno and in his mind developing things, and he's willing to share all this information. We are very fortunate to have him doing this stuff. Let's see, we have Lisa R. Will Brian eventually offer full engine assemblies with a menu of upgrade options? That's a great question.
Yeah, we do, and we have those today. The only issue is because we are a pretty small organization, we got a pretty long wait list, but we are going to be taking this data, kind of updating our website for those that want to do their own work.
Right.
So we can offer, here's a kit that's going to give you this much horsepower, and here's the parts, and you click the kit. But we also, every engine we build, and the reason why we don't get as many out, maybe as some people would like, I have some people to a lot of other engine builders that need them quicker. But everything runs across the dyno. Everything, we go into the bottom end of the engine, all the clearances are set, and sometimes we go through 2 or 3 bearing sets just to get the clearances where we want them, because again, it doesn't matter if I'm building the engine that's going in my black car, or if I'm building the engine that's going to a customer, it's the same amount of time and effort to put that together because we don't do it one way.
Yep. A couple last questions here, and then we're going to chime off pretty soon. We've covered this before. There will not be a 6.8 or a 7.3 Mustang that we know about. And if you think about it from a packaging standpoint and a fuel economy standpoint, the cubic inches and the packaging under the hood, considering they have such a fantastic V8 right now, that's all aluminum. It makes 460 or 80 horsepower, depending on what combination you have. And everything's been worked out. It passes current emissions. The cooling
Correct.
system is figured out. Crash. The front engine dress. Everything obviously fits. They've been building the Coyote Mustang since 2015. If you did a 7.3,
2011.
well, yeah, I meant in the S550.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You know, if you do a 7.3, everything changes from the truck. The front engine dress changes. The cooling system changes. The tune changes because now Ford's putting the engine in a lighter vehicle. It would cost literally millions of dollars, and to what benefit?
I would venture hundreds.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah. And again, the regulations that the government has on many mass producers, and I'll talk the auto industry specifically, from crash requirements to emission certification for an OE supplier like Ford or General Motors or Chrysler or whoever, it's an enormous amount of money just to certify the vehicle.
Sure.
Now, in the aftermarket, there's some ways to do that where you can, where it's not as rigorous to do an emission cert through a current approval, but it's still something that, the average individual can't do. It's a,
Right.
and SEMA's trying to make it easier for the folks that are doing that, but it's very expensive. So even though I love the Godzilla, right, and that's what I'm dedicating all my time to. The Coyote to me is one of the greatest engines ever produced, right? How many engines make near 100 horsepower per liter, and the only service is an oil change every 10,000 miles?
And if you have a Coyote and you put a supercharger on it, you have a 10-second car with everything else being stock if you know how to drive. And that's an incredible thing to be able to do. And then with a couple tweaks, go 9s and still maintain stock-like drivability. We've done it over and over again on different projects. That's hard to beat, Brian.
Absolutely. And again, it's not that it wouldn't be cool. It's not that people wouldn't love it. It's just that with the current regulations that have been in place recently, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, and there's things people, I think, the average layperson, not to even sound like I'm talking down just because Brian has lived it and I happen to be able to see some of it, but there's the government standards for crash, the government standards for noise and emissions that have to be met on a new car. There's literally a standard which probably didn't used to exist back in the day because you had hood ornaments that could impale themselves on a person. But if a vehicle strikes a pedestrian, there has to be a certain amount of hood crush. So you have to have certain distance between the hood and the top of the engine.
Yeah, Brian, truly racing intake would be really low.
That would be good. But if you put a truck intake under there, right, it probably would not even fit under the
Somebody
stock
could
hood.
afford racing.
I don't want to talk about that yet.
Sorry.
My point being that Ford would have to completely redesign the induction system for the Mustang, and again, that's getting into calibrating and new products, and it's
just not the cars.
it's not like the old days where you had a Rolls Royce hood emblem that was this big giant metal thing. Now, if you
Or
hit,
the big fins on the back of the old Cadillac,
Yeah.
which are awesome.
there's actually a spec for if you hit a pedestrian.
I
Like-
remember. I know.
How about get out of the way? Don't get hit by a car.
That would be logical, but everything. Our government. We got a Descartes on here, so I don't know if that means we're cut off.
All right, we're good. We're back.
Nancy's going to shut up.
We lost focus too.
It's okay.
That's all right.
Sign
We're
off.
okay. All right, guys. Thanks for checking out the channel. It's been a fun night talking Godzillas. We'll have more of this stuff. We've got more videos coming up, I promise. Have yourself a great night, and thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.